Hi everyone, my name is Bill. I'm going to just briefly go through some techniques with Pectin and some GC products today. So I'm very proud to be a KOL for GC America, and I'm very proud to be part of Dan's team here in the USA. He has done a fantastic job with the lab side, and I can tell you straight, if it wasn't for Dan, I wouldn't be doing this stuff. I wouldn't do it for any other company, and it's more like a family. And I'm proud to represent him here today. So we're going to be talking about the new world of hybrids or more screw retained cases. And like I said, I refuse to do zirconia anymore. And I'm going to go through a few steps and reasons why I say that. But a lot of things is this, the zirconia was just really a stressful and a hard restoration or kind of screw retained appliance for me to make. So I'm a huge fan of Johnny Cash, and he was introducing himself at a concert, Asbury Park, and he was saying, you know, to see where we're going, we have to reflect back. So look, let's reflect back on some of the cases that we've made in the past. Here's my friend Al Hodges, one of the best technicians in the world, and these are his pictures, and these are just PFM, porcelain fused to metal arches, and Al does a beautiful job, but he refuses to do these cases at this stage, and some of the reasons are gold is very expensive and heavy. You know, there's very few, I know in the USA, there's very few technicians left with the skill to be able to do this. The schools are closing down here. We don't have a lot of training facilities for technicians, so this kind of work is out of reach of many technicians in the USA. Layered porcelain is still only 90 MPa. If something goes wrong with this, if it chips, if it fractures, it's really hard to fix, and there's a good chance we have to start over. And like Al says, the stress level is extreme. At his part of his career, and same with me, I don't want stress in my life. I want to be able to come sit at the bench and be happy and concentrate on doing an artistic job. Here's Renzo, a good friend of mine. These are all his pictures. And although Renzo does a fantastic job with these titanium acrylic wrap bars, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You know, if you're vertically challenged, there's not enough space. Denture teeth can wear down over time. You don't have a good mechanical retention or chemical bond to the titanium. It can fracture. And if it does fracture, it's really, really tough to fix. The acrylic can attract bacteria. It can degrade. And for me, this is just not a good long-term thing to give to the patient. This is Glenn White's. This is similar to what we're going to be talking about today. It's sort of like the BDT technique or bonding Lisi crowns or lithium disilicate to Pectin. Here they're just using a chrome cobalt frame. They'll do the gum work and opaque it, and then they'll cement individual lithium disilicate crowns onto this. But it's the same thing, you know, it's extremely time consuming. You have to have a high skill level to be able to accomplish this. There's a lot of variables that go into this. You need a lot of space. And it's very difficult to make this aesthetically pleasing. Here's the worst of all, the zirconia arch, the beast. And I still get shivers down my spine even looking at this picture. Here's a case I did with Dr. Howard Chaslin. And here's some of the negatives for me. You know, it's extremely rigid. If there's any error, if a doctor talks us down, it's going to crack. And if it cracks, we're starting over. And you know how much work and labor goes into that. And it's a sort of starting over something like this it just doesn't make it profitable for a lab technician. It's a very time consuming. And as I mentioned, any fracture, we're starting over. And for me, it was a very tough restoration to make it look aesthetically pleasing. I mean, A1 on the bench was not A1 in the mouth. The value was just so high, and the skill level to be able to make these look good in the mouth is really difficult. Here's the most important, again, is the stress level. I, as a technician, don't want to sit at a bench feeling stressed. I know when I had a zirconia arch, the next morning I hated going into the lab. I just didn't enjoy going there because I knew there was always something that could go wrong. And I just don't need that kind of stuff in my life and in my lab at this stage. Now, this is where I'm moving to, is lithium disilicate. These are Lisi crowns on a high performance polymer like Pectin. So we have the Pectin frame over here, and on top of this is lithium disilicate, which we're going to cement to, and I'll go through all the protocols of how to do that in a minute. And we're going to finish off with some pink composite. This is the GC, the Gradia Plus. It's not available in the USA yet, but I've been fortunate to be able to use some of it, and it'll be launching soon. So traditionally, I would play this video showing why I would choose Pectin. I cannot play it today. We don't have time. So, but it was, let me put the sound down. It was this guy running his Kilian Jornet, and these are ultra marathon runners, and they run for 20 to 30 hours. When I used to watch these videos, you know, you'd look at all the research that would go into it, how the shoes that they would need to last, to be able to run for 20, 30 hours. They needed something that would really help the body and support it and be shock absorbing, and to support the body through this horrible process of doing an ultra marathon. Now, you know, shoe companies that develop these shoes, I mean, would you give the runner a shoe like this one on the right? No. I mean, we would want to give them something like this that's going to support the body, and it's going to be shock absorbing for all that pounding and all the stress that the body is going to endure during the whole process. So when I look at this screen on the right here, this horrible army boot or whatever it is, that is zirconia to me. I mean, there's nothing shock absorbing. There's nothing even similar in the human body that we can think that is like zirconia. And for me, Pectin is more this on the left. It's more of a shock absorbing. It's a more friendly material that we can put into the body. And I'll go over some studies on that in a minute to prove this point. So before we get on to this, I always like to thank Lee and Phil, because they did all the groundwork and the research to what I'm going to show you now. And we have to pay respect for them, because they really put their neck out on the line pushing this technique and this protocol. And it wouldn't be where it is today if it weren't for these two individuals. So I'm just paying respect for them today, because they owe it. Now, Pectin, you can press it. This is a Pectherm over here, and this one here is where you see my cursor, is a Pec press. But you don't have to buy the Pec press. You can use a Dachema oven. It's the only porcelain oven on the market that you can be programmable, that you can press Pec. But you have a choice between the Pec press, or you can, if you have a Dachema, you can contact Dachema and they can give you a program to press Pectin. And this is the Dachema, and these are the ingots that you would use to press. They come in an ingot form, and this is just a guide to show you, you know, because Pectin has to press at around 390 to 400 degrees Celsius. So it's really important how you heat it up and that you don't overburn it, like this one here. It'll go in like this brown color, and it needs to be here on the right, but I have a better picture to show you. So here are the ingots, and I use my burnout oven to heat them up. And you want to calibrate your burnout oven that it's exactly the right temperature. Otherwise, if you look at that previous slide, you are going to burn the Pectin ingots. And when it's at that sweet spot, it's going to look like this, like a honey consistency. Now that's more or less 390 to 400 degrees Celsius. And at this stage, it's ready to press. And here you can either put it into the Pec press, or you can put it into your Dachema. So here are examples of some of the presses I've done. You can see that these little extensions are just air vents, just to help get rid of bubbles. Typically, analog way, you're going to start off with some denture teeth. I haven't got time to explain the whole process, how to make the frame, but you can go contact Lee Mullins or something. He does a lot of courses on that, on how to retrofit these using an extent flask. But we set up denture teeth, and then we retrofit these denture teeth and create a frame on the inside with a burnout resin. So there's your frame with the preps. And we're going to, we can press out those denture teeth if you use like a really low quality PMMA denture tooth. So it's not necessary to hand wax that. You can just press the denture teeth out, burn them out, and press them out of the GC ingots. And here's your frame pressed and your individual units, your lithium disilicate, the Lisi teeth that we're going to bond onto this frame. So we started off with this denture teeth and that burnout resin, and there's everything pressed out. So that's the analog way, and that you're going to use the PEC press or the Dikema oven. Now there's the millable option too. And what's nice about the milling too, all these offcuts from the CAD, the puck, you can press those pieces as well. So even if you have CAD in your lab, get a PEC press, because you don't throw all these pieces away. All the offcuts you can press. It's the same as the ingot form. Now I'm using a Roland to mill on my Pectin, and we'll skip through this. It's not important. And but the same way I would have started off with the analog way, I'll set up denture teeth, but in this stage, instead of retrofitting and re-engineering it, I scan it with my GC Adva scanner, and I just engineer it in the software with ExoCAD and create my individual pieces. So you see here I have my frame, which will be the Pectin, and the individual teeth here, which I'll mill out of wax and put it all together. So here's a better view. That goldish greenish thing will be the Pectin frame with my individual units, which I will mill out of wax and then press out of lithium disilicate. So here's the frame after milling, and the milling is beautiful. It's beautiful, clean. You can see how smooth it mills. I mean, TI base fits in there perfectly. And here I have my individual wax units, which I'm going to press out. Okay, so Pectin is not new to medicine, right? It's been here for a long time. Decades. It's only new to the oral environment. So it does make me mad when these dentists want their 5-year research. And I mean, this material has been used in the body for a long time, and it works. I mean, the guys coming back from war, we can repair their skull with it. We can print this out. The spinal cords the vertebra has been printed out of this material, and it's 100% biocompatible. It will not absorb fluids. So it's been around for a long time. Now, here I really want to explain this. There is only one PEC on the market, all right? Pectin. There's no other PEC made by any other company. The only company that makes PEC is CM, and anything else is a PEEK. Now, PEEK is polyether ether ketone, okay? And the problem with PEEK is it has too much flex to it. And that's where they came out with PEC. They added an extra ketone, which made it more rigid. So we don't, whatever layering we're going to put on there, composite, or we're going to be putting lithium disilicate teeth on that, the flex would not make it delaminate. And Pectin is the closest material that we have to human bone. If you can see here, non-pressure metal, we've got the cortical bone, and here Pectin. It's the closest material to date that we have to human bone. And these are studies that were done on about how you be able to bond to Pectin. And this red line is the standard bond that we need for our professional industry. And this green line is the bond that we were able to get with all these different bonders and primers. And it's well above the standard of the industry. Okay, and there isn't one magic primer for Pectin, and I'm going to go through in a minute what is the most important thing for bonding to Pectin, but it isn't the primer. You can use multiple primers, they're all going to work fine. But more important about the Pectin is that it's shock absorbing. You know, when we're talking about implants, we lose our periodontal ligament, and we need something that's going to support the implant or help with compression and endure those occlusal stresses. And this is what Pectin offers, because this is a study that was done in Genoa, and they researched all these materials, zirconia, glass, metal, and the conclusion was, I'll go to the next slide, is that Pectin reduces the stress by 70% over zirconia on implants. Now that's huge. And we all have cases coming back of implants failing, screws coming loose, and we have to look into this and why is it all happening? And if Pectin can reduce the stress on these implants by 70%, I really think we're going to have a longevity and better results. Now, my journey with Pectin started I'm going to go through some small cases because I want you to have a good overview. I started pressing to Pectin. And if Terry is listening, I had to convince him for 2 years about this before he started pressing. And if he only listened, he'd probably be doing this 2 years ago. But I paid off my press in the first month just pressing custom abutments. I'd buy these titanium cylinders from Preet. They FDA approved for permanent use, and I'd press to them, and I'd make custom abutments. And this is so quick and easy. You hand wax to this, you press it out, you polish it up, you're done. There's no cementing, there's no bonding, nothing. So here's a good example, right? And I pressed to this titanium cylinder, and Terry's sending me messages on the side here, so he's angry that I brought up his name. Interrupting me, Terry. So I was able to press around this retentive, the titanium, okay? Now, if you ask yourself, which one do you think is going to last better? There's one on the right here, this little TI base that has no vertical support. We know we have a lot of crowns that are, the implants that are deep, and we've got a high vertical. And this is where using a titanium cylinder like this, where I can cut it to exactly the height I want, to accommodate each case and press Pectin around. It's just, for me, is a much better choice than using these small TI bases. And yeah, physically ground the Pectin away, and you can just see how beautifully it integrates, and there's no ways that'll ever come off. Now this is a good example. The doctor wanted me to do some custom abutments. It's a really tight bite. I pressed it out of Pec, but I was able to press onto this long temporary titanium cylinder, and if I'd used this little TI base here, I know this case would have failed. It just didn't have the vertical to support this bite that you see up top there. And the beauty about Pectin, I can bond to it. So here's some GC Lisi crowns. I can bond to that. And more importantly, I have that vertical support of that titanium in there. Here's some quick examples. In this case, the implants weren't placed ideally. I had to hand cut all these titanium cylinders and customize them just to be able to get them to be like that. Milling and bonding to this or cementing would not have worked. The only possibility here is for me to press. So these are the units pressed out, being pressed. There it is pressed out. And more importantly, you can see how beautifully that Pectin presses to the titanium. So we're going to move a little bit quicker because I'm running out of time. Here's some pictures of, you can see there's no cement line, and it just integrates beautifully, and I can polish it up. And to me, the most important here, it is shock absorbing. Like I said, it reduces the stress by 70% over zirconia. And on top of this, I can bond anything onto here. Lithium silicate, I can bond composite. If my margin was too short, I can add pink gradient gum to this. I can repair it. There's just so many possibilities to it. Here's an implant case that had the access hole running right through here. I was able to make a Pectin custom abutment, bond some pink gradient onto that, and put a Lustre crown. This is a case I did where I left the lingual in full contour to add strength. Yes, it's not aesthetically pleasing, but I'd rather go for strength than looks. And this is a huge point I want to bring up about the high performance polymers, okay? Pectin's, I think, the only one you can polish and expose to the oral environment. All these other ones that they're claiming, they have fiberglass in, they have fillers, they have all kinds of stuff, and you have to seal them. There's just no ways you can polish some of these other, the PEEK and the high performance polymers up like Pectin. So you can see I could polish up. There's no glaze on here. It polished up like glass. And my choice for polishing up is dye shine. So you can just contact dye shine. They have a kit for Pectin, and it polishes up really quickly. All right, so we'll go through small cases here. This is just the small screw retained cases. This is one of my favorites here, the little 3-unit Pectin frame with Lustre crowns, and finished off with the GC Gradia gum. Here's the case seated. This is another one of my favorites too. And what I love about these cases, I'm putting individual teeth on. And so we have I think this was an MTB1 ingot from the Lustre with some GC gum Gradia and bonded together. And you get this beautiful individual look of a bridge. This case here, this implant here, they could not retrieve. So what I had to do was they wanted the screw retained cantilever, and then I had to make a shell that would fit over this implant here that could not be retrieved. I did have them prepped it more, as you can see here on the right. So this is my units. I'm going to press everything out, finish it off with some lithium silicate and some Gradia gum. And so I'll be able to screw it down here. It'll anchor on this and cantilever off the molar. Not the ideal thing, but it's sometimes you just have to think out of the box, and this is what Pectin allows you to do. So there's a case seated, and the day it's seating, but I want to show you a picture that's more important over here, is this X-ray. And this is where pressing to me is, you need to have the option over milling, because I feel better with this vertical support of this titanium cylinder in there compared to a small TI base that I would cement onto. But there you can see it's anchored onto this implant. We couldn't retrieve and cantilever it off here. Now, if you do have cantilevers, speaking like that, of cantilevers, you can get these distal extension bars. I think Neodent sells them, and we can press to this. I mean, you could mill and then cement bond onto this as well, but at least you have the titanium to add strength to a cantilever if you need to increase that AP spread. So here's an example of a case. Inside this frame here on this cantilever is this distal extension bar. So I can just sleep better at night knowing that that's not going to break. This is a milled splint from Pectin. Let's go through this quickly. Polished up. Here's a case that I made a Pectin bars with locators on. Al Hodges cast these metal housings for me. You can get these from Preet. And I was able to bond that housing into the Pectin using GC's link force. And this is another important thing I want to bring up. Please research your cement. Link force works perfectly on these high performance polymers or PMMA or any kind of, because they've added that it has some flex to it. I understand this Pectin will flex slightly, but not enough to debond, but that slight flex can, if your cement is too brittle, it will cause that like a TI base or whatever you're bonding to can't come off because it will crack. Where the link force, that will not do that. It has a small like elasticity to it or flex. So I was able to bond these, cement these into the Pectin. And I'm going to show you a little bit later about bonding because I messed up on this one here and this metal housing came out, but I'll explain to you later what happened there. I made a big mistake. So there's the bar with the housings on. My Pectin frame, we're going to fit over that, press everything out. And these units over here are all monolithic, okay? I'm moving to more, I'm not layering that much anymore. I'm trying to be smart. Lisi Press has amazing ingots we can choose from. If we're smart and intelligent and we pick the right ingots, we can just spend more time in staining using the spectrum stains and Lustre paste and get results like this. And the reason I'm doing this is because, you know, layered porcelain's only 90 MPa. These crowns here are all 500 MPa plus in strength, and I can sleep better at night knowing that there's a good chance these will never chip or break. And my friend Al Hodges and I are going to be teaching a lot of these techniques in October. This course will be announced today. You can contact GC about it, but it's moving towards less layering and using these beautiful stains to be able to get this result. And we finished off that case with some Gradia Plus gum. Now, if you want to, the new Gradia Plus kit is only 3 shades. It's like a base light, dark, and a medium. And then you can mix these 3 together, which I have done. I've made a custom shade tab with different mixes. These, like this one here that says 3/C, I've mixed the base 3 and a clear together 50/50. So instead of having all these different tubes, GC's like minimize the kit. We only have 3 and you can customize it and make your own mixes. Here's a case that was seeded last week. And this gum over here is this mix of the light, which is the 3, and the clear 50/50. So we have 3 and the clear in a 50/50 mix, and it was pretty close. I could have done better, but wasn't a bad guess from just a photo. Here's some Pectin frames for the Maryland bridges. This one on the left is a Cerasmart that I bonded to the Pectin frame and just finished off with GC Optiglaze. And these 2 on the right are with the Lisi ingots and some spectrum stains and Lustre paste. But all monolithic, there's no layering there. And the case seated. Now we talk about weight, you know, that's a huge negative of the zirconia. And I just want to show you this little video in case you don't believe me. This entire frame is only 15.2 grams, and it's all that the lithium, the silicate, the Lisi crowns, the Gradia Plus, everything combined. This one was with the screws was 10.6. This was the first one I ever made. It was 12.5. Here's another. I think this one was the lightest. It's 9.8. And courtesy of Josh Polanski, he weighed some natural teeth out, and they were 21.9 grams. Now, when we're doing zirconia, this is a full arch I did years ago. I mean, nearly 90 grams versus the Lisi teeth, Gradia gum, and a Pectin frame, 12.5 grams. You have to ask yourself, which one would you put in your mouth? I mean, that's the biggest complaint I had over zirconia is the weight and how the patients just hated it in the beginning and how hard it was and the sound that just the loud noise that came from it. All right, so now here's a case, also zero layering, just really using custom staining and some Gradia gum. And I'm going to go through the bonding protocol now, because to me this is the most important. If we don't follow a strict bonding protocol, these cases will fail. And to prove it, I put this on a model grinder and ground this frame. And you get a result like this. Now I can confidently say there's no combinations of materials until now that we can do something like this. If you did this with PFM, zirconia, all these pieces would be flying all over the place. But I want you to look at this section that has been sliced, and here's just the bond is so important, because if we skip a step here, there's going to be leakage of between the pink composite and the teeth, and things are going to delaminate or they're going to just come off. So we're going to go through the bonding protocol now. And I've shown you this slide how Pectin has amazing ability to bond to it, okay? So there's no excuse. GC did some tests on Pectin, and the conclusion that came out is that the most important thing about the bond is you have to sandblast. And that's where the main mechanical retention and a chemical, but the key is the sandblasting. And their test that was done was with a 2-bar with a 50 grit and using just clean air and dry air. I mean, clean and dry air. And they were using the Gradia resin-based opaque, and their conclusion that they achieved the greatest bond, but mainly because of the sandblasting. And here's a test I did. There's a new product on the market. It's called not new, but it's new to the lab technicians. It's called an AquaCare, and basically we're going to be sandblasting with alcohol and a sand of 100 grit. Now, this is a piece of Pectin. In the middle is the original color of the Pectin. You can see it's like an ivory beige color. On the right here, our sandblasting with a regular sandblaster, and it burns the Pectin. You can see it turns, the value changes. It goes a little bit gray. And on the left, I sandblast with an AquaCare, okay? And the AquaCare delivers alcohol with the sand. And I'll show you in a minute how that works. But what the AquaCare does is with the alcohol sandblasting is that it cools the surface, that we're not going to burn the Pectin like we would with a regular sandblaster. So it stays this beautiful white color. And why this black is not good is that, yes, the bond will be okay, but that grayness will come through, and it can change the value of the crowns and the pink tissue that you're going to put on. In the beginning, I had a lot of issue with value when I was putting my crowns onto a Pectin frame, and I contribute this to this graying from the sandblaster because I didn't have the AquaCare. Now, it also cleans with the alcohol, it cleans the Pectin and makes sure that it's fat-free, and it produces a kinetic energy. And that kinetic energy prepares the surface for accepting the primer. And I didn't believe this until I used it for the first time. Now here's the aquacare with that sample, and you can see this is the specimen that on the left that I hit with the aquacare. So here's the alcohol coming through, and the sand has been delivered on this top part. So basically, you're just sandblasting with alcohol and 100 grit. And this is the result we're going to get on the left here. And you can see that surface. It's just beautiful surface to bond to. And this here on the right is the regular Pectin. Okay, so I did that with the aquacare. And then afterwards, we do not want to use air. We do not want to steam. We want to put it in an ultrasonic with some isopropyl alcohol. Just leave it for 10 minutes, and then we're going to let it air dry. And here we can see I'm applying a primer, which I'm going to show you how we're going to do in a minute. I mix it with some GC multi primer. It's a resin-based opaque, but you can see how beautifully it's been accepted by the surface. It's as if it's sucking it in. And I'm saying suck, it's just holding it there because the Pectin will not absorb fluid, but it's like it's this magnetic kinetic energy that is just holding it to the surface. And it gives you, it accepts this primer like that. And there's just an example of the primer. And I'll go through the steps of the primer in a minute. This is just another example. So this is back in the day when I was pressing and using a regular sandblaster. And I'd already cemented the TI bases in with GC link force. Now this is where I use a resin-based opaque, and I dilute it with GC multi-primer. So I'm going to dispense some of the resin-based opaque from the Gradia Plus, and I'm going to take some of this multi-primer and I'm going to dilute it. That I get a surface, get like a consistency like this. And if you go to GC Europe's website under Gradia Plus, all these steps are in a download over there. So I've diluted it with GC multi-primer, and I'm going to paint it on the surface. Now you can see here, this Pectin has a slight grayness to it compared to where I hit it with the aquacare, okay? And you can see how this primer has been accepted better than the primer from the surface of from the sandblasting with a regular sandblaster. This one on the right just seems like it's just holding it much better, where this one just, it's accepting, but it's not as nice as with the aquacare. And here you can see that grayness that I'm talking about from the regular sandblaster. So there I've primed it with and this works fine. I mean, I've never had failures or anything like that, but it's, I just don't want to, I want to use the best, and this is where I will use the aquacare. So there's my surface primed with the resin-based opaque. And you have to use some sobriety here. You know, you don't want to put it on too thick, because if it pulls up, then your crowns aren't going to sit onto the frame. So please be careful. Just a nice thin layer. I'm going to light cure that. And this is where the bonding protocol is really important, okay? I want to make sandblast the inside of these crowns, because if there's any peg putty or any glaze or something like that, etch is not going to be able to etch 100%. Yeah, so I'm sandblasting, I'm cleaning any kind of dirt that can be on the inside. I'm going to physically grind the glaze off, because I want to make sure that that bond of that pink composite that comes over here, that'll be there, will bond to the pure ceramic. You cannot etch the glaze 100%, and I'll prove that to you in a minute. Here I'm going to, each one I'm going to individually etch like this, because I want a surface like that. I want to make sure when that pink composite comes over here that it's going to bond to this crown, and that I'll get, otherwise you're going to get leakage and it's going to turn black underneath. Let's go through this quickly. So here's the proof that the glaze doesn't etch 100%. I put a drop of etch on this glaze surface and a drop of etch on where I've ground the glaze off. And this is after steaming. I left it there for 1 minute, and you can see the etch did nothing to the glazed surface. So please grind this glaze away on the margin and then etch. Now we're going to use the GC multi-primer to just prime the ceramic. We let that air dry, and then we're going to use the GC link force to bond these units to the frame. And you can see my etched surface here that will be ready for the gum. And here I went and I cemented the anteriors first, and then I came back and put the posteriors on. It's too risky for me to try and do them all at once. I run out of time. And this is a very important step. I didn't document this, but I will take a micro brush, and I will make sure that I take that micro brush and I rub the cement onto the inside of the crowns. And this is courtesy of the champ, the new champ. His name's Terry Foey. This proved that Terry just squirted some cement in here and pushed the crowns on, and it created a void, okay? If we don't physically take the micro brush and rub that cement on the inside of the crown and rub it onto the prep of the pectin, I promise you, you'll get voids like that. So thanks for that picture, champ. And this is proof because this metal housing here, I just squirted cement in and squished this metal housing in. I did not take a micro brush. And afterwards, this metal housing came out. There was a huge void, and the cement did not adhere to the metal. So please take a micro brush and rub it and make sure that it sticks to the surface. All right, so after the cementing, I'm going to clean up. I'm going to spend a lot of time. I don't want that cement getting stuck in there. Let's go through this quickly. We're running out of time. So there are my units cemented and bonded to the frame. I'll start off with, for the pink composite, I'll start off with a bone color. I learned this looking at Jungo's work. You know, he said, what's under gum? He said, there's bone. So I start off with a bone colored a hard body, whatever shade you want. This was just an A3. So I create a layer of bone first with a tooth color, and then I'll come with a Gradient Plus. And typically I start with a light shade because it's easier. I can darken up, I can go dark, I can make something dark, but if I've started with a dark base, it's very hard for me to lighten up. So 99% of the time I start with the base light. Now this picture is more red because my Canon camera, the sensor picks up the reds much stronger, but this is the base light. And I'm going to do this foundation I do to 90 to 95% of the final shape. And it's just one base. And then I can take the GC OptiGlaze, or in the new gradient kit is the GC Lustre paints. You can use both of these. And I start characterizing the gum. And I'm just characterizing that 90% base that I put there with some OptiGlaze color or the Lustre paints. And basically I put a canvas down and I'm just painting this canvas. And here's some of the white OptiGlaze. And I'm taking this old Smileline brush, it was like synthetic brush, which I cut off the hairs, and I'm basically tattooing. I'm pushing these colors into that base. I haven't cured this yet. And here I'm taking some orange and I'll put it around the neck here, and just to give it some more warmth. And if you want to take some blue, you can create some veins. And at this stage, I'll cure this just to set it. And once it's cured, I'm going to take another thin layer of the hard body and seal it. So basically, I'm sandwiching those colors in between two hard bodies, okay? The first hard body is 90 to 95% of my final shape. I characterize that with colors, and then I seal it with another hard body. And that last layer of hard body is so thin that it becomes transparent. and all the colors come through. So on the lingual, I'm not going to stress a lot. I'm just going to seal that off. But you can see now the optic glaze colors sandwiched in between the two hard bodies, and it's coming through. And I'll spend a lot of time here because you do not want to grind here afterwards. If you're going to grind, there's no ways to glaze again. You've crossed the Rubicon, you know? So please take time and get this gingival roll 100%. The only grinding I'm going to be doing here is between the junction of the soft tissue on that. But that's pretty much this. I've stippled it and I'm ready to do my final glaze. I'm going to seal it off with the air barrier gel because I don't want to create more of a reaction layer from the oxygen. I clean that off, and I've already polished and ground and just finished it off to where I want it to be. Now, before I do my final glaze, I will seal everything with GC multi-primer again, because if I did miss a little spot like there where my cursor is, I can see there's some ceramic that's etched that I didn't get to. I know the GC multi-primer will seal that, and when I put optic glaze on, the optic glaze will stick to that. So I'm just putting some multi-primer on here, and after the multi-primer is dried out, I can seal it with the GC optic glaze. It comes in just the regular, the thin optic glaze, the clear, and then the high viscosity is the thicker one. The high viscosity I will put on the intaglio surface, and then a thinner one here on the outside. I don't want to kill all my texture. So this is just the optic glaze. And if everyone questions optic glaze, which I did, here's tests that GC did. They simulated 50,000 times brushing your teeth. That's like 10 years with toothpaste. And they put it on various materials, but you can see this like purple blue bar is to show how that optic glaze protected that material, and the reddish like purple pink here is without the optic glaze, and you can see how much wear occurred without the optic glaze. So that's the case finished. Some zero layering with some Gradient Plus gum, and I can tell you to date I have not had one failure on any of these Pectin cases. But the most important to me thing about it is the bond protocol, and you can go to GC Europe's website and download all these steps. There is a manual to that, and I'm going to finish off quickly because we need 10 minutes for questions. I use this analogy of why I choose Pectin over zirconia, and is that we're selling I feel we're selling a car to a patient. Again, the patients are going to be driving this car. With zirconia, something goes wrong with that car, you're starting over. It's toast, man. You have to start from scratch. Now with Pectin and lithium disilicate and gradient gum, if something goes wrong, if I lose a tooth, I can prep out one of these teeth. I don't have to remove the frame out of the patient's mouth. We can bond a new tooth in. If I lose the same, so the car, it needs to be serviced. We can replace parts. If we lose an implant, I can put a new implant in. I can retrofit this. I can bond to it. There's just so many windows and opportunities to repair, and I feel these can last decades. So I'm going to finish off just by reminding you, let me go through this again. I apologize. And I'm just going to finish off here just to announce this course with myself and Al Hodges. Doesn't Al look like a GQ model? Wow, he looks good for his age. I don't think I'm going to look like that when I'm your age, Al. But anyway, I'm very proud and honored to be teaching with Al in October. It's the week 24th to the 27th of October. And we're going to be doing two-day courses and sharing all the knowledge we have. And like I say, this course will be announced today, and just watch Facebook. I'm sure there'll be links on that. And I'm going to just open the last 10 minutes to questions. And No rude questions, please. Last time you guys did some crazy things. So let's see if any questions. Dan's asking what size tip. I mean, for what, Dan? I'm not sure what, like for the composite or the aquacare. I mean, the aquacare comes with just a regular tip. So, I mean, whatever tip that comes with the aquacare. I'm not sure what tip you're talking about. Let's see. Oh, this guy's asking the difference between peak, pectin, and trilol. Okay, so peak is polyether ether ketone. Pectin is polyether ketone ketone. And there is only one Pectin on the market. There is no other company in the world that makes Pectin. And trilol is a fiber glass reinforced high performance polymer or whatever it is. But you cannot press trilol. You have to mill it. Peak you can press, but peak has more flexibility. And there is a good chance of delamination of whatever you put on top of it. And for me, the Pectin is you can expose it to the oral environment, which a lot of peaks you cannot, and trilol you cannot. All right, so here's another question. Can you speak about the polishing process? Very easy. I use a product from Dyeshine. It's just the regular black rubber wheel, the ones we used from the gold days. I started with that. Then I hit it with the Dyeshine, the fine soft, the pink. And then I finished with the bristle brush. And the next one is the polishing paste. The next one is the super fine soft. And then the final one is just with a cotton bath. It's literally in less than a minute, entire arch you can polish up. Can you dry mold Pectin? Yes, 100%. I have a Roland here, the DW X51D. I dry mold that. Juvora is not the same as Pectin. That was the same as talking about trilol, and none of those are the same as Pectin. Okay, there is only one Pectin on the market, and all those other materials you have to seal. You cannot expose it to the oral environment. You mentioned repairability. Is Pectin repairable? Yes, that's the beauty about it. You know, if something goes wrong, you can fix it. There's just so many possibilities to it. It's not like zirconia and the fact that I can bond to it. And I'm going to repeat myself about the bonding. You know, the most important thing is the sandblasting. Oh, yes. Okay, you said 100 micron aluminum oxide. What size tip on the sandblaster? Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I have a Renford on the Aquacare. It comes with whatever tips with that, and you can speak to Tay from Annexdan who sells the Aquacare about the tip for the sandblaster. She'll be able to give you more information on that. And the champ Terry Foy wants to know when will GC sell Gradia Plus in the USA. You have to speak to Dan about that. Dan said hopefully in the next few months they'll launch that, Terry. What other questions? That's Brian Perkin from South Africa. Hey, Brian, he's got a question. I won't say, he said some really bad word here. I won't repeat that. He said, suggesting link force. He's asking the difference between link ace and link force. And I'm not sure about the link ace. I just know that the link force was brought out to handle like materials like Cerasmart, that we have more flex to. So I just know that the link force is really suited to these materials where there's that slight window flex that it can handle it. And I'm not sure how link ace compares to the link force. I'd have to research that. And then he wanted to know, will GC composite primer work? Yes, 100%, but like Brian, just the most important, sandblast that first and clean it in alcohol. I'm trying to find other questions here. That seems to be it. Oh, wait, here's one from Darren. Let's see. So if you don't have an AquaCare to treat the frame, can you use a regular sandblaster? Yes. So if you are going to use a regular sandblaster, just make sure that maybe hold the tip further away with a lighter pressure, and maybe just move the sandblaster back and forth that you're not generating heat. You know, just instead of holding it on one part the whole time, just alternate it, that we try not generate a lot of heat. But regular sandblasting will work, okay? It's but just be careful of that where you can burn it, and like anywhere from 50 to 100 grit will work. But the tests that were done, and you can speak to Tay from an extent, that the best surface was with the AquaCare at 5 bar and 100 grit delivered through alcohol. But I've only just started using that, and with my regular sandblaster, I've had 0 failures to date. But just be careful about that. Here's a question about the Kima from Cheryl. Do you need special parts to press at the Kima? No, you just need to contact the Kima and ask them to put the program in for Pectin. They have or you can download it off the internet. What grit, from Mark Siegel, what grit with regular sandblasting? I'm using 50 micron on my regular if I did use it, 50 to 80. So it's that'll be fine. Thanks, Scott. No, Scott's trying to embarrass me here. So it was you that knocked over that table, Scott, not me. Oh, here's a question from Jorge. He wants to know, what's the time life or lifespan of optic glaze, and does it lose its color over time? And I should have had the slide where they did stain tests, and it's extremely durable and resistant to stain and abrasive. I showed you the one test with just the wear test and how the 50,000 cycles, and that simulated 10 years of brushing your teeth with toothpaste, and it hardly put a dent into it. But, you know, there's nothing wrong in 5 years from now than removing that appliance and cleaning it up and putting a fresh coat of OptiGlaze on. I mean, we all have to service our cars and clean it, but you can speak to any GC rep or office or agent, and they can give you a lot of or go to the website, and there's lots of data on the GC OptiGlaze, how it is resistant to stain and wear. Oh, interproximal food trap prevention, John Ackley. I mean, that depends on the client you're working with, and yeah, sometimes you want, I mean, they ask you to fill those interproximals, and so food can bounce off or slide off. You know, my thing is I'm trying to replace what we lost. I want to make it look like what it was before. I have to brush my teeth and clean my mouth every time we eat, and these patients need to learn to do that too. So, you know, when we fill those interproximals, it just looks fake. but if your client allows you to open up the interproximals, go do it. But if your hands are tied and you have to fill them up, then you're going to have to close them. But depends on who you working with. Let's see. This is from a Peruvian technician. He says, in conclusion, should we forget about the zirconia substructure? No, I mean, it's just not a material I see as a future. I think it's been great for its time and that, but this my personal thing is it's not the future. We have to think of materials that are going to be more friendly to the body. I mean, that's my personal opinion, and then I don't want to work with materials that are going to stress me out, or I want to work with something that I know I can repair and has all these different possibilities, and more importantly, just makes me excited about being a technician, and zirconia doesn't do that. All right, I think it's past the time. I think I'm going to end the webinar now. So thank you for all your attending, and thank you for listening, and I hope this helped. So I think we're going to sign off now. Thank you. Goodbye.